So today I wanted to talk about Poképla and potential Pokemon that would make good Poképla kits in order to build because I want more good ones. And I mean, I know Bandai will probably never see this, but good to get it out there somehow. So a few questions to answer first. First, what is Poképla? It's Pokemon Plamo. What is Plamo? It's plastic model kits. Usually they come on these sheets of plastic that we call runners, and most kits aren't this much. This is a more excessive one I built. But there's also some crazy ones that are way more than that. But I usually build them up. There's different ways to do it. There's out-of-box builders who try to build them and do stuff like minimalize how many marks are left from cutting out the parts, because that usually will leave marks if you don't do it properly, or removing the marks. Some people play it where it lies. If there's a mark, then the mark's there. And then adding different levels of details up to completely repainting and recustomizing the entire thing to make it your own. In my case, I typically use it for small scale photography. So that's just me. And a friend of mine, basically, when I was first getting into this and talking to him about it, he basically called it Chad Legos. And I think that's a fairly good way to put it. So next question, what is Pokemon? Just kidding. You probably have a decent idea. So in terms of Poképla, there are two main types of kits that I've seen them make. There's fixed posed kits and articulated kits that you posable. And my personal preference is posable, and posable ones that have the ability to make joints look good or hidden. So I don't really like kits of living beings. I prefer the mechanical ones for the reason of it's easier to make them look good. I don't like all the joints. Like, to me, this Mewtwo, I don't like the way it looks with all the joints. And that is somewhat reduced on the fixed posed ones. Like this Eevee back here, you can see it has the little lines around like the ears in here, but those are easy to remove with plastic cement, which we'll get rid of the lines. I noticed there's a little one right here, and that'll get rid of them. Or some other types of adhesive also work, but obviously for posable stuff, you lose the ability to move it. Which for some reason to this point, and at least cases like this one, where like to keep the head able to move, they had to make the fur all these separate parts, and they had to do this with the leg so you could move it. So, and in those cases, in terms of why I list posable as one of my preferences, is because at that point I'd rather just get some sort of statue figure of it, one that I don't rebuild. And for my decisions, I also looked at every existing model that they've already made. Some of these are just announced, they're not out yet. And the stars I threw in there just basically represent ones that I think meet my criteria. So it's not many of them. And Magikarp's a unfilled star, because it's almost there. There's like a few things about it that aren't great. But it also does some smart things, like it uses... Basically, you could replace parts to change the pose, so that way they didn't have to worry about the joints. But that's not the greatest thing to have to change the parts either, but it's better. So I'll just get started. First one is Blastoise, and the reason for Blastoise is I did not mean to click yet, but whatever, is that it's segmented. It's easy to hide joints within all the segmented parts, like the cannon's joints can be hidden easily, the neck. The arm can have a couple of points if they wanted to. Like, it's not, because it's big bulky design, the articulation's not going to be crazy. Like, you don't see Blastoise pulling off that many crazy poses, but it could still work. Next is Arbok and Ekans, and the way that these would work in really well is kind of like the Rayquaza they built, or designed, is that basically they added like all the points of twistiness, and it's in a way part of the segments, so that way it all looks natural. And you can pull off different poses to an extent, and then they even have the cute little stand. Obviously the stand would be probably terrain for Ekans and Arbok, but it's a way they can do Next one that I saw that I would be interested in is Parasect. Once again, segmented, easy to hide, especially with under the mushroom. They can do different stuff. Could come with a little Paras, because if you looked at that list, like some of them came with their pre-evolutions. Same with Alakazam. I was thinking this is probably one of the lower ones that I've chosen, because I don't know how exactly they would make the elbows and knees work good, but the shoulders they could get some good movement in the head without it looking bad. Same thing with the hands, since they come right out of those cuff things. Could come with a little Abra, maybe a little Kadabra if they're feeling spicy. This next one has a lot of potential. It's Magneton. And this one I could see them giving some good options, like perhaps the option to build it as just 3 Magnemites, or including enough that you can build a Magneton and a Magnemite. And they can include options so that way you can probably pose them and articulate them, so by changing with the connection points that connect the different heads in a way, and they could probably make the points to move the magnets look fairly good. For the same Serpentine reason, we have Onyx in the family. Onyx would probably work the best, just because usually when they do metal plated parts, they don't look great in terms of the marks that they leave when you cut them off. It is possible to use other methods, but companies don't often do that. Bandai does it the most, so it's possible that they'll do undergated parts, is what we call them, so the marks are inside where you can't see them anyway. Or like they could just make it come into gray and people will just paint it metallic. Next up is Krabby. No, not Krabby, Kingler. My bad. Please flame me only lightly. But yeah, lots of joints. You could very much see how they could hide it all. Next is Voltorb, just because I think it would be funny. They made a model kit of a ramen cup noodle. Now, so I just want the Voltorb because it would be funny. Probably be like a $5 kit, similar to if you look up Haros, Haro, and you'll see where I'm going with this. And there's Kabutops, and I included it in Scyther because I feel like the arms are better for a kit, and this has a few points. A lot of the insect Pokemon, insect-like or arthropods, I didn't include because they have more thin parts that I don't think really necessarily translate too well, but it's all possible. But Skizzer, I'd say, is more possible than Scyther in many ways, that the points look like they would work better. And Chuckle. I mean, you just hide the points in the shell, and Chuckle doesn't really need too much articulation, so it would be mostly just rotation of the different parts of its body, and I just think it's neat. Next up is Crawdont, because arthropods just work. Speaking of which, Armaldo. You see a lot of points where you can easily like add movement for the foot and it look good, add movement for the arms, and they can give us a little Anorith. The big one that inspired me to think about this and go through the entire Pokédex is Metagross. I mean, when you look at Metagross, you can literally look at it and see it has ball joints already. So they don't even have to really hide the joints because it's just part of how it actually looks. And it could work really well. Same thing with the Mega form. It's all ball joints. So and then they could probably do a little bit of movement with the jaw and make that look good. And they can probably bundle in the evolutions. Beldum would obviously not move, but it would be cute to include. Probably just be one part with a sticker for the eye. And that would be fun. Next up is Drapion. So many segments, and arthropods just work. Giratina, specifically in the origin form, because it doesn't have to worry about the legs. Could potentially work at points, just having it all twisty. Able to do different stuff with the wing tendril things. Tendrils can be hit or miss in terms of the kits, especially if they try to make them like wires. Those can be either pretty cool or pretty very, very much off, depending on the how much they cheapen out on the wires. And if they really wanted to, they could probably include the parts so you choose which one you build and make it possible to switch between them if you really wanted to. Next up is Genesect, but again, I know Genesect was already one on the list that was really good, but it's the only Gen 5 one I really saw potential in when I was going through, and I felt bad because Gen 5 is my favorite, and I gave a bunch to Gen 1, which is not my favorite, so we could get another Genesect with new age model kit technology, because model kits really do get better by the year, especially from Bandai. So there's a lot of potential for a new Genesect to be made. Volcanion could probably work. It's not much to really say there. They can do some stuff with its back steam cannons. One that really surprised me as going through was Vikavolt. There was a lot that they could throw into this in terms of making a move. This basically right here shows everything I would want a Vikavolt model kit to do. Come with a little charger bug that it can hold on to, have different options for the wings, little effect parts that you can probably put in the mouth or connect to the, I don't know the name of the pincers, maybe. And I think it would just be really, all in all, like not like extremely postable, but you could do enough with it. And then there's Golisopod. My main issue with a Golisopod kit is it might have trouble holding up its big meaty claws. So that's the main obstacle, but I just kind of wanted them to include a small little window. And since we're including every generation, I thought Eternatus had potential, maybe a kit that gives you the options to build either its normal form or its Eternamax form. Because I don't really see a transformation gimmick working, but I can like picture how they do this, because it could just be like they include clear plastic in a lot of kits already, so it would work pretty well. I don't know how postable it would be, but they could probably do a bit since it's like segmented bones. Don't know how fun it would be to build though, to be honest, looking at it now. See, it looks like it would be a bit repetitive, especially depending on the scale of it and how many separate parts are in the spine. So out of everything, my most wanted is both Metagross and the surprise winner, Vikavolt. These two would be really cool if Pokemon Company thought of them. I'd definitely paint a Metagross to be shiny. I'd get two kits, one to be Leaf Normal, one to be shiny. And yeah, that's my list, so thanks for coming by. I hope I was able to say stuff in a way that could be understood. See you next time.